So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
And we will just quickly trace through tonality-wise what that science vertical is. Science has to do with the triune person. Now, science is that which we know gathers or holds within itself. If I say gathers, then we feel it's gathering up, it's drawing back in all the explication of itself, back into the implicate oneness of the principle. But actually, Word Christ Christianity and science, or Word Christ Christianity never leave science. They are that which is implicate in science. So you see that one person, that one principle, is a triune person, a triune principle, holding within itself, being within itself, the word of life, the Christ truth, and the love that is Christianity. So it's that fourth side that says, I am the other three. Those three that you thought were three things or three separate things, that as you went along that ascending way of understanding, you began to see that the Word and the Christ are one thing, and that the Word and the Christ and Christianity are one thing. Didn't you? Did you feel that? That there's a growing sense, a momentum in the whole flow of consciousness as we stay with that whole flow that begins to show us it's all one. It's just one. It's one thing. It's science. It's the one principle, science, in its expression as Word, Christ, and Christianity. So here we have the triune person gathering up Father, Son, Mother to show us that divine principle is love. We can hardly think, we can't imagine a greater love than the love of the fact that principle is life, truth, and love. That science is Word, Christ, and Christianity. This is love. The divine principle is love. The divine principle is a calculus. This is love. To be a calculus means that principle is that the divine principle is the Christ. We can think of it as the Christ of science. The Christ of science itself is divine science. The Christ within science itself is divine science. The fact that it has a divine science, that the infinite is able to calculate itself, that the infinite is rendered calculable through itself, within itself, that science, here's the hula that someone asked me for this week, that science holds within itself its own ability to calculate itself. And that calculus is expressed at every level of consciousness. Every level of consciousness. Even a level that is unaware of it. Totally unaware. Never heard of Christian Science. Never heard of the science of being. Or perhaps heard of it and didn't like what it heard and turned away or whatever. If somebody is critical of Christian Science, it doesn't matter. The calculus is there. The calculus is working. Nothing is going on but the calculus. That is love. You see that the divine principle is love. More and more one feels that everything is really a great descent, you see, from that infinite one principle to the divine principle, love. That infinite principle is divine, and it's love. And that love, the love in the principle is love, truth, and life. It's, you feel a backwards flow, really, that the more and more that backward flow within the whole model begins to take over. And that's an indication that there's a synthesis going on, that there is a shift in the whole direction of the flow of consciousness, generally, to begin to come out from love, out from the standpoint of the 7,000-year period. So that triune principle, that infinite principle, you see, which is gathered back up now, that the word, the whole of the word vertical that we saw, the whole of the Christ vertical that we looked at, the whole of the Christianity vertical are gathered up into the triunity of one principle, and that's science. Science which understands itself, which knows itself, which understands itself and contains, as we said, within itself the ability to bring that calculus to every level. That's the biblical rendering for that is the Holy Ghost, the pneuma hagion, the influx, the power to influx itself at every level, to come in, to break into every further level of consciousness, which we see happening really on the level of absolute Christian Science, that calculus comes as a calculus of ideas. Do you see that in your survey? It comes as a calculus of ideas to absolute Christian Science, and when it breaks in on Christian Science, we see that divine self-understanding through a calculus of ideas is establishing scientific understanding, establishing our understanding of the principle, that our understanding becomes structured by science, as science. Then returning to science and divine science, we see that the divine principle is that which expresses and holds within itself its own harmonious self-government. It is harmoniously self-governed. And through life, truth, and love, through the Word, Christ, and Christianity, we have seen the constitution of that self-government, the constituency of that self-government on its own level. But as that harmonious self-government is making its descent through the levels now to the level of absolute Christian Science, we see that within itself it is able to interpret itself, to bring out its own interpretations. You see, through its calculus of ideas, that we get the infinitude of interpretations of the principle. And on the level of science itself, that is affecting us as making us become aware of ourselves as idea, that we awaken to the fact that we are idea, our ideational being. That's the working of the calculus of ideas. And then again, on the level of divine science, we see that it is the unity of principle and spiritual power. Whenever you hear something like that, unity, what do you think of? Unity of principle. What would the unity of principle be? The fact that principle is life, truth, and love, is the Word, Christ, Christianity, that science is Word, Christ, Christianity. This is a great unity within principle. It's the unity of the principle, and that is its spiritual power. The spiritual power of the principle is the fact that it is life, truth, and love, that it can express itself, that it does express itself as life, truth, and love. Bringing to the further level of absolute Christian Science the spiritual evidence that every idea, every individual interpretation of the principle, every individual calculating of the calculus of the principle as an idea is an instance of spiritual evidence. And for the human, you see that comes to us as giving us the absolute final proof that principle is what it is. That proof is our growing understanding of the principle in its infinite self-interpretation of itself. So that gives us a little bit of a tonality for taking now the science standpoint, the science vertical. The science vertical within the Dorley matrix, God's self-interpretation as science. So to say, this now is the whole issue that's been at stake, at hand. This is the whole point of what's been going on. The whole point of that evolution through the Word, through the Christ, through Christianity, is to bring us to the standpoint of God's own self-interpretation of himself as science, such that we are stamped, that we become that very interpretation, that our whole makeup and structure of consciousness is stamped and coined by the principle itself, that we are the self-interpretation of God, that I am, that we have no other I am than that I am God's own self-interpretation of himself as science.